This is AgGrad Live.
We have all of the different segments within the cotton.
The show that explores what it's really like to work in the ag industry.
So making sure that we get policy and regulatory issues
straight from the people who live it every day.
We've been having a lot of fun with these AgGrad Lives, and thank you to all of you who have been showing up and leaving comments and questions and engaging. This has just been a lot of fun to record something live. I've had a podcast for coming up on 2 years now, and it's just a whole nother level to do these live, and it's been a lot of fun. If you're not catching them live, which is the best way to watch them, you can also watch them on YouTube by subscribing to the AgGrad YouTube channel or subscribing to the AgGrad Live podcast, where you can listen to them there. This has been a lot of fun. As you know, if you've tuned into previous episodes, we have shifted the focus from one of career discovery of what's it like to do this job or that job, to one of how can I progress in my personal and professional development and gain new skills so that I can be a better employee, a better business owner, a more marketable candidate, a better student. And I've been really, really enjoying the advice we've been receiving. In fact, I was inspired last week by Hannah Miller to write a post on AgGrad about building momentum in your career. Today, I'm very, very excited because when I asked her about kind of her general career advice, what she said 100% resonated with me. I don't know if it's because we're both business owners or we're both podcasters, but for whatever reason, the advice she has here to share with you today, I would 100% put my stamp of approval on. I think it's essential advice no matter what stage you are in life, whether you're a student or professional. But I'm going to bring her on the show here today. This is Marlene Eick. Marlene, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Marlene, you are the owner of Herdmark Media, as well as a speaker and trainer with Live Your Story. I had the pleasure of being on the Live Your Story podcast not too long ago. Why don't you just tell us just a little bit about kind of starting your own business, starting Herdmark, and what that was like?
Sure. And the story of Herdmark really is, in a lot of ways, the story of my husband's career path. So I'll start with that a little bit. For those of you who think you have to know what you want to do from the moment you graduate from high school or college, my husband's career path is great evidence that you do not need to know. He actually graduated from Oklahoma State with a degree in animal science, and through a series of different jobs and whatnot, eventually found himself as a business owner of his own business called Livestock Promotions, where he spent a lot of time on the road on farms and ranches across the country as a livestock photographer, picturing beef cattle across the country for sales and ranchers that were having sales. And if you know anything about that business and kind of the seasonality of that type of business, the summer months are pretty slow. And so by that time, I had left the 9-to-5 job that I had and was going to join him in that company. We knew we were going to expand or do something additional or different, or wasn't sure what that would look like. And we tried a few different things about every summer. We tried some things. And so we could also do a whole other episode on what to do when the thing you try fails. So we tried a few things that did not work out, but we learned a lot each time from that. And then about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we realized that a lot of the ranches we were taking photographs for and making sale videos for of their sale cattle really needed additional content. And we realized there were so many companies in agriculture that really needed more content, especially as social media was exploding. And so companies needed content that they were going to be sharing to help tell their story. And so really what happened is about 4 years ago, Livestock Promotion ended its sort of lifespan with us. And we totally transitioned those photo and video skills that BJ had into helping companies and organizations in agriculture tell their stories through photos and videos. So we create content for companies in ag across the country and have a really great time doing that. And the company has grown. We now have a few employees. My role keeps changing every quarter and year, I think, as that has grown. But that's the quick version of how we got started. And we just had a team retreat last week. And we had dinner one night where we invited spouses, family, and friends of our team to come have dinner. And it was so neat because BJ was sitting kind of at the head of the table. And he said, 4 years ago, Marlene and I started Herdmark, and it's like this company in its current state. And now we had a whole, table full of people on the patio of a restaurant. And so it was pretty fun. And we keep learning as we go along.
No, that's really cool. And I know I'm guilty of this, and a lot of people are too, whether they're starting a business or starting off in their career. It's easy to say, you picture in your mind kind of this like hockey stick growth of, starting off and then like,
Right.
oh, next year I'm going to have my first employee. And then, in 3 years, we're going to have, 20 employees. And you all have been tremendously successful with Herdmark, but it's taken time. How were you able to be patient in the times where it didn't seem like things were going at the meteoric rise that you maybe thought they would?
Yeah. And, there have even been very specific times in our company growth where we thought, oh, this is the moment, like this is the moment, and we're going to skyrocket. And it wasn't the moment. And maybe we saw a period of some growth there, but it wasn't like that turning point, overnight success moment we thought it might be. And that's hard. That's really hard as a business owner, because you are probably, as the business owner, super excited and passionate and enthusiastic about what you do and the value that it offers people. And you just want to be doing it really well and offering to a lot of people and help. And so, for us, I think a lot of it was knowing we're on the right path. This is the right thing. We've got some great clients, maybe not as many as we'd like right now, but we have really great clients. We're doing great projects. They're going well. We need to stick with this, keep doing it, knowing that we're going to keep getting there. And the client feedback that we got was very, very helpful in those periods. And it's still helpful now. I mean, Herdmark is still growing, and it still doesn't look like what we hope Herdmark looks like when it's like a fully grown entity. And so in the meantime, the client feedback and the difference that you can see you make for clients, no matter what your business does. For us, it might be views on content or engagement, or some of our clients have seen, very tangible sales dollars as a result of a content piece we've created and the way they linked that together and executed it. When you can see that difference, that gives you a lot of motivation to keep going, because you're on the right path, and you just got to keep those wheels turning and keep producing whatever that is that you do. And for us, it's video projects primarily. Yeah,
no, I would agree from my end. I think, a lot of times you want to worry about scaling, or even in a career, if you don't own a business, you want to worry about getting to that next level. And if you can focus on, what value am I creating? Am I creating a little more value today than I did yesterday? And am I getting the results for people that they really want? That can really be some serious motivation to keep going.
Yeah. And there's a lot of advantage to growing slowly, because one of the things that we've learned, sometimes painfully, is that before, when it was Livestock Promotions 10 years ago, and it was just VJ as a cow photographer, and I kept the books and did some other things with our clients, it was just the two of us, and we could kind of do things as we wanted. Now we have employees, and we have a team, and we have some contractors that we work with. And so now we have a little bit of an organization chart, and we have systems and processes. And sometimes we've had moments where it's like, okay, the growth that has come slowly has helped us learn some of those things we've needed to learn as we've gone along. And knowing some of the things we've learned now, had we exploded really quickly, I think some of those moments might have been pretty painful for a lot more people, as we figured out not just how to do the work, but also how to run a company. And so that's, part of what being patient is kind of figuring out not just how to do what you do for your clients, but also perhaps how to manage a company if that's not a skill set you came to, in this case, being a company owner. If you didn't come to the table with that, that's something you're learning along the way too.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard, especially even for driven, ambitious people. Patience seems counterintuitive. I can remember going into my first job, it was commodity merchandising. And I thought, they told me it was going to take 3 years for me to be good at this. I said, no way. I'm going to, I'll do whatever it takes to be good at it. You're like,
no, let me show you my resume. I'm going to be good at this.
Right. And it's going to take me 3 weeks. But the truth is, you've got to be put in a million different situations and learn and be able to reflect on those and iterate. And that's true in business and in career. I want to make sure we've got a question here from Kelsey Litchfield, and it's a good one, I think, to maybe to put up here earlier in our conversation, because I think it could frame up some of the other things we do. Kelsey's asking, what would you tell your 23-year-old self who's trying to make their own mark in the agriculture industry?
So I wish I could ask Kelsey right now, are you asking this because, Kelsey, you are actually 23 right now, or because that 23-year-old self is a really interesting point? Because for a lot of people, you're a year out of college. So you have like this little bit of kind of real world context, experience at which to think about things. But you're still really early on in that process. And I think for
I don't know
folks,
exactly how old Kelsey is, but I imagine 23 is probably
it's
close.
probably close. Yeah. That's what I thought too. I think for anyone who's in that time frame, whether you are, in a job and thinking about making a change, or maybe thinking about starting your own business, or just thinking about changing the way you do something in your life, I think a lot of us, I know this is true for me, especially at that age of my life, you get into something, whether it's this particular job or particular role with a certain company. And then you think, well, I've made this decision. And so now I need to stick with this for like a really long time. And so this might seem counterintuitive to us also talking about being patient as things grow. But I think a lot of times we're scared to make a change because we feel like, oh, I've made this decision and now I need to stick with this for a long time. There's something to be said for really trying something out fully before you decide to make a change. But then if you have tried something out fully and then you realize, this isn't quite where I want to be, having the courage to say, I'm going to try something different. And maybe that doesn't look like what I thought I would be doing. My husband graduated with a degree in animal science, and he takes videos it's a big, short summary, but he takes videos for a living. He probably never thought that someone with a degree in animal science would be doing that. But likewise, just because you were an ag communication major, but now you realize you really want to do this thing, but it didn't fit with ag communications, that's fine, and really thinking about what you want to do, even if it's drastically different from what you always thought you would be doing.
Cool. And I'm gonna play off of Kelsey's question a little bit and use it to sort of transition into another aspect that I want to talk about here today, which is personal finances. I know one advice you would probably give to your 23-year-old self is to learn about personal finances. I guess to twist Kelsey's question a little bit and say, what advice would you give to your 23-year-old self about personal finance?
Oh, this is such a great question. And I often think that something that might make the most difference in my life now as a 35, I just told my age, as a 35-year-old self, would be if I could go back and tell my 23-year-old self or my 18-year-old self more about how to manage my finances and think about money. When I was in college, I was really, really lucky to earn a lot of scholarships. But still had to do some student loans. When I was in graduate school, I earned a master's degree from the University of Florida. And I, again, had some great scholarship type opportunities there, but also needed to do some loans and really just had the attitude of, it's not a big deal. I'll just pay it back when I get a job out after college or after grad school. And then when I finished graduate school, I often had the attitude because some of my friends had graduated from college a few years before that. And so they were working and I thought, they're doing this and they're doing this and they're decorating their living rooms or they're doing this. So I'll just go ahead and open that, whatever Home Depot credit card or do this. And I'll just pay that off later. It's fine. Like when I get that promotion at work or I start this other thing or I start doing speaking engagements or whatever. And so that kind of mindset and attitude carried over for a little while. And then it became a point that it was like, this is a little bit burdensome now because, I'm not a millionaire. And now I have to find ways to not only keep up with some of the things I'd like to do, but also be paying back some of that debt. And I don't mean to say that all debt is bad or that you shouldn't ever, open a credit card or anything. You have to make those choices. But really think about what's the kind of life that you want to live long term. And then what can you do now that will set you up for that? And I think that's the question I wish I would have asked myself, because if I would have been able to look ahead and say, this is the kind of lifestyle I want to live, not extravagant, but just owning a company, doing this sort of thing, I maybe would have set myself up differently to make different choices about how I spent money, how I chose to try to keep up with other people that didn't matter, or save, start insurance policies sooner, and just do all of those kind of pieces. So for me, a turning point, I know you probably hear lots of people say this about finances, but BJ and I read the Dave Ramsey books.
Yeah.
And it was just such a simple way for us to think about and understand what we could be doing to help not just ourselves personally in our household, but also the way that we thought about our company's budget, and the way that we set up finances for owning a company that was also going to shortly in the future at that time include employees.
So cool. I'm a Dave Ramsey guy as well. I wouldn't say I'm 100% to the point of like everything he talks about, but certainly the main principles. I'd love to have on this show. I need like the equivalent of a debt-free Scream, like for maybe somebody gets a job. I think that would be cool. Like,
I love that idea.
And scream when they get a job. I don't. Anyway, I have thought about that because Dave Ramsey is cool. But so with the personal finances thing, I think one thing you hit on that was really, really key is time. The time value of money, the compound effect that money can have over time. And so many people who are part of the ag grad community are early in their career and they're, fairly young. And a lot of times they feel like that's their biggest limiting factor is lack of experience and lack of time, but it's actually the biggest asset they have. When it comes to personal finances, if you can learn about, minimizing debt and saving and compounding that over time, it's tremendous what you're able to accomplish if you start early, and what a hindrance it is if you start too late. Doesn't mean you're ever too late to start. You can always start, but use your early career status to your advantage, especially when it comes to personal finance, in my opinion.
And those kind of habits are so good to make about everything in your life. I mean, we're talking about personal finances, but your skincare, start good skincare habits when you're in your 20s rather than your 40s. Start good exercise and health habits, and just all the ways in which you might think about how do I want my life to look, and how can I start habits now that support that? And that might mean that you make some sacrifices early on. One of the, I know we haven't talked about my coaching business, but I had a coaching client recently that is starting a business. And so we were really thinking about, okay, what does that mean for you now? Dave Ramsey would say, if you're getting rid of debt, right, you have to live like no one else now so that later you can live like no one else. And for her, it was, okay, is it about, you might have to invest your time differently now than maybe your friends do. You might be working more on the weekends or spending evenings differently, or not going on all of the vacations that your friends do because you're in this building stage of your business. But when you are 30 or 40, maybe that looks different for you than it does for your friends at that point. So whatever that means for you, but starting those really good habits early and educating yourself on a personal budget, on your finance, on the kind of health you want to have, on all the ways that you take care of yourself and your household and when you're in your early 20s, your future family.
Right. And so far we've talked a lot about, patience and being patient for those results, but also implementing those good habits, whether it be personal finance or otherwise. What's something that is just highly actionable that you think might be a just general piece of real actionable advice you could give anyone who might be earlier in their career?
Yeah, I think when it comes to setting personal habits, or whether it might be a financial goal or health goal or anything that has to do with habits, if you can switch your mindset to setting your goals around the consistent actions, you'll be a little bit more patient as you reach the milestones, and you'll keep up some motivation as you work to those milestones. So if we would use the example of losing weight, which is something that I've been trying to do because I had neglected my health for a while, I might say, it would be very tempting for me to say, I want to lose 25 pounds and that's my goal. But 25 pounds might be really hard for me to lose. And so rather than set that as my goal and then get really disappointed over the 6 months when it's not happening very fast, I could set a goal to work out 3 times a week, knowing that if I keep my goal of working out 3 times a week, I'll eventually lose the 25 pounds. Right. And so if it's a goal about being able to put $150 in your savings account every month, rather than setting this goal of having $10,000 set aside, because that might take a while to set $10,000 aside, or to lose a certain amount of weight, or, again, whatever kind of habits you're trying to change. I would just encourage folks who are in their 20s, focus on those action items a little bit, knowing that the milestone and the end goal is important, but you can kind of feel a sense of accomplishment if you focus on the actions that you take to get there. It helps you be more patient when it takes a long time. And you can kind of just celebrate your small wins along the way as you keep up whatever those actions are.
Very cool. Well, I'll add one actionable advice here is on the concept that we're talking about, kind of this habits and compounding effect is there's a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, I believe. Go read that book. It's short, and it's something I wish I would have read 10 years ago for myself. And one of the examples he gives is if you have a penny and that penny doubles every day for a month, how much money will you have at the end? And I don't remember what the exact figure is, but go look it up and comment it below, and I'll think of something we can send the first person who comments with the right answer on how much you'd have at the end of 30 days if you had a penny that doubled every day. It's astounding. We have another question. Well, this is a question and a shout out combination from the audience here. It's Hannah Borg. She is saying, what is a piece of advice that you got in college that you wished you would have listened to a little bit closer? And P.S., looking forward to meeting you at I Am Farm Her.
Yeah, I think if I'm correct, I think Hannah is the Farm Her intern this summer.
She is, yep.
Yeah. And I get to speak at their conference in a couple weeks, so I'm excited to do that. Hannah, this is such a great question. A piece of advice I wish I would have listened to closer. Wow. I feel like I'm being stumped here, but I feel like I got a lot of really great advice in college. And I surrounded myself with really good people. And I think there was advice that maybe I didn't listen to very well. To go back to one of the maybe earlier things we talked about in terms of don't be afraid to do the thing you may want to do, even if it's not what you thought you'd always do. Mm-hmm. I had really great mentors in college who really did encourage me to really think about what you want to do, Marlene. Like you can do about anything. And I do think that so many of us, we can do about anything if we really just put a plan together for what that looks like. But I let myself not follow that and listen to that advice and feel this sort of pressure that I felt from whoever they were, right, to keep on the academic path and stay in that because that's what I had gone to graduate school for, and I should take some PhD classes. And I felt pressure to do that, even though I had really good people who gave me great advice during that time to figure out what it was I really wanted to do. And so I think I would just reiterate that again.
Cool.
Follow. That sounds like follow your passion, but I think it's a little deeper and more intense than that.
Yeah, I think it's follow your passion by finding the most reasonable action step, like you were saying earlier. Definitely the losing weight one hit squarely at home with me. Find something manageable that you can do to start. I think a lot of people think they wish, I wish I'm doing this, but I really wish I could be doing that. And it's okay to wish, but what's the first step you're going to take today, to get there? And then what's the second step you're going to take tomorrow? And it can be tiny. It could be the smallest.
And in today's world, I talk with a lot of ag communication students just because of their interest in what we do at Herdmark Media. And so if you think about ag communication students, a great example, they might say, well, I'm not sure if I want to be interested in photography or a writer or a graphic designer or all these different pieces. Or they may think, I really wish I was a photographer, but I don't have a camera. I really wish I could do this, but I don't have and that's fine. But today there are so many options for you just to use your iPhone X, take really great photos, have an amazing Instagram feed. You're going to have an iPhone anyway, just use it, post on Instagram, and really decide and figure out if you like photography. If you think you want to be a broadcaster, buy a cheap microphone and start a podcast. I mean, there's so many ways to sort of try things out without having to have a book agent or a publisher or somebody give you some kind of gatekeeper give you a stamp of approval. There's so many ways to try things out. So if you think you want to try something or you find yourself wishing you would want to do something, there's so many ways just to get started and try it out with a small step and see where it goes.
Oh, so true. I mean, maybe 10 years ago, if you wanted to be a blogger, you had to go learn basic code to start a blog. I mean, we live in the best time for you to have a voice ever.
And before that, you had to get a newspaper editor to publish your column or whatever that might be. Now you just go to wordpress.org.
Yeah, it's amazing. Or you could even LinkedIn,
Right.
LinkedIn blog or blog on your Facebook page. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
If everybody has a voice and a message, and I think it's just a matter of practicing to get that voice out, especially for ag communications. You struck a nerve on the ag communications thing with me too. I get a lot of like, well, just, please start, please.
Right. And if you don't know for sure what you want to do, I was actually just speaking with somebody who just graduated from college and she's not sure what she wants to do, but I really applaud that she's trying things out. Like she's not sure. So she's not just sitting around going, I'm not sure what I want to do, so I'm going to sit and wait until I figure it out. She's going, I'm not sure what I want to do, so I'm going to try this and then see how I like that. Because I do think you gain a lot of clarity about those things from engaging in activities.
Sure. Well, a couple parting thoughts, if I could get from you. Number one, anything you'd just like to leave the audience with, and then number two, an ask of the audience. How can we support your coaching and speaking business or Herdmark Media?
Sure.
What can we as an AgGrad community do for you?
Well, a lasting piece of advice or thoughts that I would give for the community is, again, I do think that everyone is capable, especially today, the kind of folks who are listening to this, everyone's capable of figuring out what you want your story in your life to really be, whether that is moving across the country and having a job with a company you've always adored, or starting a business, or going back to your family farm, or whatever that might be. I think there are ways to really get excited about what the story is you want for your life, and then ways to figure out how to make it happen. And so that might be getting a new job with, and Tim, the work that you guys are doing at AgGrad, like helps connect people to the right opportunities. And so it might be making a change like that, but I think everyone has the capability of doing that. It's just getting clear on that, and then having the confidence to take a first step in that direction, whatever that might be. And that's really what we've done with starting Herdmark Media, is just going, okay, what's the next step? It might be super scary, but we're going to try that one out. And then the ask I would just make is that, as you mentioned, I have a podcast, it's the Live Your Story podcast, and I would love to connect with folks who are kind of early on in their career and sort of figuring that out. And I get to interview and chat with people who are living their story in different ways. And all the people on that podcast are connected to agriculture or the rural lifestyle in some way. And it's just kind of fun to get to meet people. I love that I have a podcast because it gives me an excuse to talk to people and find out about their backgrounds and their career path and the things that they're doing in life. So that might be something fun to check out.
Same with me on the podcast thing. I definitely check out Live Your Story podcast. I can vouch for it. I listened to it. I've been on it.
Tim's been on it. It's totally legit. Tim Hamrich has been on it.
Try to screen these things thoroughly before I'm on there. No, that's great, Marlene. Thank you so much for being on the show. I think really if there's just one person out there that takes the advice of really thinking about their habits and how they compound over time and can start early, the change that, something like this can impart on somebody is truly significant. I think that's exciting. And I could definitely attest to wanting to have a podcast so you can, not in a non-awkward way, ask people to talk to you, because I am in the exact same boat. Thank you for those of you who joined live and for those of you who asked a question. We are here. I try to do these every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Would love for you to continue to show up live, ask questions. And Marlene, other than subscribing to their podcast, how could they follow up with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media at Marlene Eick. Eick is EICK. And then, so you can also follow Herdmark Media on Facebook and Instagram. We actually have some workshops that are coming up in here at our office and studio next week. So there'll be some really fun behind the scenes things happening on Instagram. So you can just kind of see what we're doing across the country at Herdmark Media, and then find me at Marlene Eick.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Enjoy all the work that you're doing on your podcast as well as Herdmark. And we'll have to have you back on so you can teach me some Instagram tips, because I am horrible at Instagram.
Awesome. I'd love to.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining AgGrad Live. Visit aggrad.com. That's AGGRAD. To join the community, create your profile, and learn more about careers in the agriculture industry.